let's bring back the share. All right. Hey, everybody. It's the last day of October, 31st of October, 2024. And this is Gimbalabs Live Open Spaces. We get together on Thursdays at 14:30 UTC to talk about the work we're doing, what we might do next, and then to make decisions on how we collaborate moving forward. On my screen, you can see the Notion board that we've been using to organize this work. It's the Start Here page in the Gimbalabs Notion. And we have this list of projects. They're visible down here, or we could just click the link to projects to view the entire list. Notion had its first dev conference last week, and they announced that features are still rolling out. So there's some pretty exciting stuff coming through. Without going into all of that, I do recommend you take a look at some of the new things that are possible. But one of the things I'm most excited about is still in the process of rolling out. And that is a easier set of API integrations. And as we move forward, I think as we continue to, for example, build governance tooling to support the conversations we're having here, I have a lot of curiosity about how directly we're going to be able to leverage the process we are already building and maybe connect it to some on-chain interactions. So all that's to come, but needless to say, definitely check out the updated Notion documentation. And this is one of the things that, we do a lot of different sessions to learn about a lot of different things around here. And if anybody just wanted to have a hacking session where we look at some of the ways we can use Notion to collaborate better, that might be something that we want to do, in the new year. But for now, we've already got a system that's serving us pretty well. We have a list of projects. And you can see if we add up all of these counts, what do we have? 12 and 12 and 10. We got 30 something projects somewhere in the pipeline. Some of them are done. Some of them are on hold, but can be pulled up anytime. 8 of them are currently in progress. And one thing we do on the last Thursday of each month is we take a moment just to review this list and see if anything changes. So we'll take a moment to do that right after this overview. And then up at the top, we have projects that are in a proposal stage. This means that people are still refining their ideas and thinking about what we might do. And then when we get to the point where we say, okay, this proposal is ready for a decision, let's actually agree or not as a community to move forward with it. That's where we move to the community review and consent stage. And this is where we spend most of our time on Thursdays. If there are proposals that are ready for community review, we spend the time right here to do that. And we work through the consent process, which is the process of raising valid objections and refining a proposal until everyone is confident moving forward with it. And when that happens, we can move it to the in progress stage where it'll be off and running. Does anybody have questions about the high level process before we continue with our agenda? Okay, so let's stick with our new pattern of using the last Thursday of each month just to do a quick review of what's in progress. And to keep this quick, we can just go down this list from top to bottom. If there are things to share, people can share them. And we can just take a look at our dates and our allocated budget for each of these as we continue to improve. So starting at the top of the list, not much to say here. This proposal is still open. At this point, we have, let's go to settings. We can see that there's currently 12 members in the Gimbalabs Notion. And we have a process. If people build a proposal, Our current agreement is that they will get 1 year of Notion access so we can build these systems. We initially made this decision a few months ago, and we already have a plan to review it in March, the last Thursday in March. So I don't think there's any action needed right now on the Notion accounts. Does anybody have any questions or concerns about this work in progress? Okay, yeah, we don't need to spend time there. Delivering Plutus PBL and Aiken PBL, I have updates on both of these as well. So on Plutus PBL, we've made a lot of progress, and actually we have a review date of today. I'm almost done with the first draft of Module 205, which is the introduction to validators. We have a whole bunch of source code written in Aiken. And for the last 2 Wednesdays at live coding sessions, we've been going through that content. I thought we might get through the last 4 lessons yesterday, but we got through 2 of them and had a really good conversation. So that means there's still 2 to go, 205.6 and 205.7. And when those are done next Wednesday, finally, this initial delivery of Plutus PBL will be complete. So I'm going to just change this review date to 1 more month from now. And that'll just be a reminder to look at this again. Operational dates, thought we might be done a few weeks ago, but as always, there's a lot going on. But I have a high level of confidence. Next week, this will pretty much be wrapped. And I'll also be able to bring next week a final report on how much ADA we actually spent delivering the initial course by looking at the treasury we've been using. So that'll be nice to close that out. Does anybody have any questions about Plutus PBL 2024? Harsha.
So I was working through the course yesterday and I was getting some error messages saying that Conveyor needs to be used because the transaction build part is slightly different for the Conveyor. Would that be a part of like the updating?
Yeah, exactly. So we know that the course is now out of date. And that's why I really want to bring this proposal to the group. We have a Catalyst proposal around updating the course, but I'd like to bring to the team the idea that I think we can start now and not wait until January on making those updates. So yeah, if you're seeing that it's out of date, that's the justification for why we need to start the updating work. All right. On Aiken
Can I
PBL,
ask?
oh, of
Can I ask?
course. Yep.
Um, so you're going to stop after next week on Plutus? Is that what you mean then?
Well, by the end of next week, the first draft of the course will be complete and already it's out of date, right? So we move from writing the lessons for the first time into updating them.
Mm-hmm. But you're going to wait. You want to wait
No,
to
my
do that.
proposal is to start right away, but we need to treat that as a different set of work. We were approved to build the initial version of the course and we had a budget for that. I don't want to just start updating the course without a plan and a budget for how we're going to do it. But
Oh,
in my
okay.
perfect world, that plan would be approved as early as today.
Mm.
And so there, yeah, the only thing we would wait for is if we can't get to approval of a proposal to keep working.
Okay.
Quick updates on Aiken. This is a Catalyst proposal. The initial completion of Module 205 in Plutus PBL has been a prerequisite to moving to Aiken PBL. I wanted to have an initial launch point for people here. And by the way, those lessons are updated for post hard fork, right? So it's kind of nice that we didn't write a first draft of them that would just need to be updated. They're already ready to go. And with that done, now we can take the draft of Aiken PBL that Hinston and I created, and we can complete a first draft of that. So that's ongoing. All I'm going to do here is just change that review date to a month from now so I can report on that then. But the intention is to kind of have that first draft live by January. And we'll start rolling it out in November. But in terms of having all of the lessons published, give us a couple months to get that done. Any questions on Aiken PBL? All right, I'll kick it to Harsha. Anything you want to share about the sustain and maintain? Now it's really two proposals, Fund 12, and you've been doing some work on getting Fund 13 in as well.
Yeah, so Fund 13 is very similar, but like with small changes. But for Fund 12, the second milestone has been submitted and approved. And by the end of November, I'll I'll put in the next milestone.
Awesome. Thank you. And you got a payment for that and already sent the Gimbalabs part to the Gimbalabs, call it the treasury staging address, right? Which allows me to just then put those funds into the treasury. I haven't had a chance to do that yet because I haven't synced my mainnet node this week. But as soon as I get in there, I'll move those funds and I'll send everybody a screenshot of the updated treasury. But that's great. Is it okay if we just add a review date for next month as well, just to have a check-in on this?
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions about that high-level proposal right there? And this one really goes for 4 months. We should say that it goes until at least January 1st, really. And it probably goes beyond that. While you're thinking of questions, another thing to point out, you can see in the funding source right here, this proposal is its own funding source. And some of these funds, right, are delegated to just administering this proposal. So we have an agreement about how much Harsha will earn for doing all the reporting, handling the Catalyst stuff. But then, as you remember, we've already allocated part of those funds to other work, like sustaining our spaces and like Playground Season 4. So you can see that's indicated right here with the same funding source, F12, sustain and maintain. I'll come back to Marlowe PBL in just a second. Does anybody have any questions about these two ongoing proposals, which spaces and playground? We don't even plan on reviewing those today, but if there's anything people want to share, feel free to jump in. Harsha, what do you think?
So I just had a small tension with with live coding, which is sometimes the font is too small. So maybe if we can make it like a regular thing to just increase the font a little bit, because we are also recording it to put it in the course. So yeah.
I love that. Thank you. And yeah, if I ever forget to do that, can remind me. I'll do my best. I'm going to put a sticky note next to the computer. But sometimes I jump into something and I change windows and forget to blow it up. But let's hold each other accountable to that. Any other questions about which spaces and playground? All right. Marlowe PBL, like Aiken PBL, is a different proposal. Sebastian has really been leading the way on kind of reimagining the proposal. When we made this proposal in Catalyst Fund 12, the hope was that the Marlowe team would be funded to do their core development work, and we would be funded to build the course. our proposal to build that course succeeded in Fund 12, but the Marlowe team's core development proposal was not approved. And so we've been scrambling a little bit about how to do that right. But I think we've gotten to a really good point with the Marlowe dev team, and we're building a way to deliver what's possible in the current course while supporting the longer term goals of the Marlowe team and just building a better connection there. So that's exciting. Sebastian, Kevin, and I have been leading that work so far. And we are now meeting weekly on Tuesdays at 13 UTC to organize on this work. So if anybody here is interested in understanding more about that work, just look for the Marlowe PBL channel in the Gimbalabs Discord. If you can't find it, just let me know. But this work will be ongoing. Similar thing, it has its own proposal for funding, and we will continue just to align on that one each month as well on the last Thursday of the month. Does anybody have questions about Marlowe PBL?
I really like Kevin's work with you on that. It's been interesting to observe. He's really engaged and
Yeah,
thought a lot about it.
it's really nice how it's coming together. Yeah, we're getting really organized there. I think we're building some productive patterns. So yeah, more to come on that. We'll keep reporting on that. And the last one on the list, I promised to do this last time, and I just haven't had the dev time to do it. And I'm actually going to pause this one for now. The reason is we've been using a prototype of the contribution treasury. And right now, the Andamio team is working around the clock to integrate these treasury features into what already exists on the Andamio platform. So rather than taking precious dev time to build anything here with this prototype that's new, I'm using all of that to inform the development. I recognize that we still want to be able to look at a full log of this transaction, and we can do that very simply by looking at the treasury address and the escrow address. And I'm confident that we will want some kind of like end of year report on that as we kind of summarize the Gimbalabs finances for 2024. But I'm not going to build any new features into the prototype at this point. So for this one, I'm going to mark this paused for now, but recognize that it's something that we'll want to come back to as we're closing out the year and doing some other work. Any questions about that one? All right, not bad. So that's how smooth a review of current work might be on a Thursday. As time passes, we will have more projects in process, and you can imagine that it might take the entire open spaces meeting to review this list. And that's why we are reserving one Thursday per month, the last Thursday of each month, to do this. If that turns out to not be enough time in the future, we can reconsider that pattern. But for now, you can see that we just did a brief review of this, taking a look at review dates, operational dates, and we'll continue to flesh out this allocated budget column as we continue to work. But for now, is everybody okay if we move on from the review of current projects? All right, we've got some time to work on community review and consent. Currently, there's 4 items in this list, but before we jump into this list, let's look at the list of proposals here. Would anybody like to move any of these proposals into the community review and consent phase?
Uh, yeah. Basically, I'm thinking of that because I don't know if my hope Alex is hearing me now. Um, I said before in our last private Discord chat, it's like he was making maybe some objections about the proposal not getting approved, and which I think it was partially present when I was proposing it live. But then I don't know if Alex still has something to say to it. Um
Yeah, excellent. So can we take this one and talk about it today?
yeah, like if Alex I don't know if he still has something to say to it after
Yeah.
reviewing it because yeah.
Perfect. Well, the way to find out is by bringing it. Just going to change the status of this one, and now it's on today's agenda for us to talk about that. Does that sound good?
Yeah, sure. Thanks.
Okay. Anything else in this list that we want to make sure to talk about today? Right. As always, right, when things are in the proposal stage, they have owners, and people are already working asynchronously on all of these, right? So when you look at this list, if you can think of next steps, that's a chance to come together in Gimbalabs Discord and refine these proposals. If we get through our agenda right here, then we can go back and see if there's anything else we want to just make some progress on. But I'll close that one for now. Backlog, same question. Is there anything here that we want to move into the review and consent phase? Cardano Go PBL. I'll say I'm the owner of that. I don't have any action items on that right now. Student Society Playbook is a Fund 13 proposal. And Newman, we'll wait for him to get back for this one. Alex, is this one worth talking about? Interop with Cardano core repos?
I mean, it's more of a live coding session, if you'd like.
Oh, nice. Okay. So yeah, we can leave that one here, and if it comes up at live coding, we can do that. All right. So here's our agenda. We want to go through this process. Um, I know I would love to talk about this one because we know that updating the course is urgent, and I want to put Emmanuel's proposal at the top so we can check on the status of that. I have the one around financial accounting that I'd like to get to consent sometime in the next few weeks. And then we've got Catalyst Fund 13 and Dandelion Light. These kind of fall into the bucket of taking next steps on Fund 13 proposals. So let's see if we can get to those. But is it okay if we move through these in the order that you can see on my screen? And Alex, I saw you were just moving one. Is there something else that should be right here?
In progress, no.
Okay.
I moved something to post.
Okay, got it. Yeah, got it. All right, thank you. All right, cool. Well, let's take it from the top. Cardano development and smart contract education. Emmanuel, you said there was an objection to resolve here. I'm looking for it. But take us through that, and maybe Alex, if you had objections to the current proposal, now's probably a good time to talk about that.
My English should be better because I didn't talk about objections, but rather I understand tensions in the proposal. And so, as far as objections go, we were talking about Catalyst proposal for which I don't think any sort of objections concept applies, because whatever vote is gonna vote will be decided as a fact. And this proposal, I'm not sure. I was reading this proposal and we were talking about the catalyst proposal, and that's pretty confusing for one. And for the second, yeah. So I don't understand what we're talking about. Sorry.
Okay. One point of clarification, and this is not a final structure yet, but it is something that started to emerge while we were all working on our Fund 13 proposals. And the concept is this. We've got these catalyst proposals in for Fund 13 now. And like Alex said, right, if those are approved in Catalyst and we get funding there, of course, we're going to move forward with that work. But the new question that we encountered just a couple weeks ago is whether or not some of the work is worth starting even before we get the Fund 13 results. And if so, can we use some of the existing Gimbalabs budget to fund the first steps of this work? Now, as a general pattern, you can imagine if Catalyst funding were to continue into the future, we're going to keep having these opportunities to write proposals for Catalyst. And that's wonderful. But sometimes when we write those proposals, we will identify work that can go through this Gimbalabs proposal process as well. And there'll be it'll be kind of like a fluid boundary between those things as we come up with great ideas for what we want to work on. So that's still emerging, right? That's an incomplete pattern that we are right now experimenting with. I think our opportunity right now is to ask, is this a proposal that we want to start in the next 2 or 3 months, regardless of whether or not the Catalyst funding comes through? Is that how you guys understand it? Emmanuel, is that how you understand what we're doing here?
Yeah, sure. Yeah. Yeah, the thing is I see it as okay, yeah. Gimbalabs is an already made community on its own, like so contributors and participants can, propose to the community if this project should pass on, if Gimbalab should actually take over on this project, even without relying on Project Catalyst. So yeah, and if Project Catalyst is like, okay, to bring in like a support, yeah, like a support for Gimbalabs, and yeah, that's how I see it. But then if there's any clarification like that should be made on this proposal, I can start all over again. And if there are things that should be known, um and the thing is, yeah, so yeah, if there are things that should be known on this proposal, I can get all over of it again. And basically right now, I was saying, if we can get started on this proposal by October or November, then I think no pressure right now, no pressure, because I get funded on maybe Project Catalyst, and getting the funds on the milestone, from the milestone, and then and trying to and we've started the project with Gimbalabs, and I think that would be contradictory. It will be contradicting the progress of the proposal at Catalyst. And also right now the proposal is with the students that that they are ready to get onboarded. Right now we are still on break. So university management has decided to take lectures virtual till next year. So everything is now aligning to next year, what's it called? Next year project. So yeah, so if there's still any objection, sorry, Alex, I misquoted, but I misquoted, our chat, so then if there's still any objections, I can make clarifications. I can, speak to it from today till tomorrow, because this is what I really feel is going to be a game changer for the Nigerian developers community. And I've seen on Project Catalyst some proposals from, like Nigerian developers developers education in the past, from like 2 to 3, and the difference between this proposal on Project Catalyst and that the other proposals are that there is no already made educational platform for them to get onto, and that is why Gimbalabs is already there right now, so we can just get into it, and then I think that would maybe give us an edge on the outside community, and I'm hoping for the better. So yeah, that's it. Thank you, everyone.
So it sounds like one of the most important takeaways is that just because of circumstances at the university, we probably don't have to decide on this right now, because what I just heard you say is that based on the way people are going to be remote for the rest of this calendar year, we wouldn't be starting to deliver these workshops until at least January anyway. Is that correct?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. So is it okay if we just put this one in the backlog for now?
Yeah. Whatever.
So
Since
so
it's
no action. What we can say is we don't need to take action on this one immediately, but we will continue paying attention to how circumstances advance, and we will look forward to the Fund 13 results. And what I can imagine is, right, obviously, if the Fund 13 proposal is successful, then we celebrate and we run with it. But if the proposal is not successful, then we can bring this back to the community review and consent phase, and we can decide whether or not there's something that we want to push forward here, even without Catalyst. But for now, we'll put it in the backlog and stay on hold just for the next few months.
yeah.
Great. No, this is great progress. It's a good plan, but we want to make sure that we do it at the right time for students. So this feels good. And everybody should notice, right? The pattern here is now we have a pretty well-defined proposal that when we are ready, we're going to be able to pick this thing up. So great work. Nothing is wasted. And Emmanuel, you'll never have to start over on the proposal. It'll always just be a refining of what's here, and we'll keep making it better until we get started.
Yeah. Thanks you.
Awesome. Thank you. So actually, the second one in this list is in a similar category to what we were just talking about with the education proposal. This proposal is connected to a Catalyst proposal that's linked right here. Oh, nope, that's not a link to it. That's just a link to our About Project Catalyst. Did I put... Here's the link to it. And you can't see this on my screen, but I'm dropping it in the chat. And from this Lido Nation link, of course, you can look at it on IdeaScale as well. But the idea here that's similar to what we were just talking about is I think there's some work that's worth doing right away. And that's the work of updating the Plutus PBL course. So what's already happened is I've reached out to people inside of the Gimbalabs Discord and at the live Cardano Summit in New York last week. And we now have 4 people out of, we were hoping for 5, who would be willing to jump in as PPBL maintainers. We've got Andrew and Caesar on the call right now. And then there's 2 other folks, Lawrence and Monique, are ready to go for this. So we've got 4 out of the 5 people. I think we could push and find 1 more. We've got a proposal, and the proposal is for 140 something thousand ADA. But what I'd like to bring to this group right now is, can we start with the first 2 milestones, launching the maintainers cohort, identifying the updates that need to be made in the Plutus PBL 2024 course, and start making those updates right away? If the budget is a total of 24,000 ADA, we do have this amount of ADA in our current treasury. And if the proposal was successful in Catalyst, we would just use this portion of it to replenish the treasury, and we would continue moving forward with it. So that's kind of the idea. And just like we were talking about a few minutes ago, this is a new pattern. We can learn how to use this pattern as we go. But again, just to reiterate the idea, you write a Catalyst proposal. You're waiting for the funding to come through, but there's work that we want to start right now, right? The question is, can we use the Gimbalabs treasury to start the parts of this work that we want to do anyway? And that's what I want to share. I hope that we can start updating the Plutus PBL course before January. It's out of date. It needs to be updated. And so that's the proposal I bring to all of you. And if we can move into the objections and consent process, I think this proposal is ready for it. There's a couple of things that we can flesh out with your feedback. But what questions does everybody have about this proposal? And what concerns do you have about maybe moving forward with it?
Hey,
Harsha,
yeah.
what do you
Oh, sorry, Hashi put his hand up before me. If he wants to go, it's fine.
No, that's okay. You can go ahead and I'll ask later.
Okay, yeah, I've probably got a number of questions that are probably not all suitable for this chat. So obviously I've put my name forward, which I'm really excited to sort of help out. I'm not entirely sure of the experience of the other members. My skills are maybe towards web development, but in terms of experience, we'd obviously there'd need to be somebody. Well, obviously, James, when you do the course, you're obviously very experienced in smart contract language and that sort of thing. I think there needs to be a team whose skill sets are wide. That would be a little concern I've got. I wouldn't want to waste anyone's time. Yeah.
That's such a important concern. And so let's think about that in a few different angles. First of all, to be a little bit more specific, I'd like to put myself forward as the project lead. Okay. And this way I would be earning this 4,000 ADA for leading the project and making sure to document the outcomes. And as the project lead, I would want to be there to answer any questions and provide any support from this team. Okay. Now, we're going to convene this work as soon as it's approved, and we'll get together, and those will be open meetings, but the most important people will be the 5 maintainers and the project lead. But Andrew, that was one of the things I wanted to align on when we do first meet, is to whatever extent you guys feel comfortable, you'll have full decision-making power over the precise breakdown of work. And we'll be putting people, right, with the right skill sets into individual tasks. And if you realize there's something that nobody is able to do or that you have questions, that's where I'm willing to help as much as needed. But the assumption I really want to make is that I won't help unless you guys ask me to. Does that make sense?
Yes, yeah, absolutely. I'm really enthused about the whole Gimbalabs setup. It's a new way of doing things. I imagine community-driven way of doing things, and there's always going to be some areas we need to sort of use our own initiative on. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to it.
Yeah, me too. And for me, that's the investment here, right? So is there a possibility that the team we put together does not have all of the skills required to make this happen? Sure, there is. But does it feel like a reasonable risk to, right, take 5 people with the skills they have? I've learned enough about you and Caesar, for example, that I know you guys are ready to be working on this, right? Lawrence already built a textbook about Cardano development, so I feel confident that he's got some skills. And Monique is a experienced project manager who really wants to look at the course content through the lens of the big picture. So I feel excited about that, but of course there's still a chance that it doesn't work. And this is where we have to think about the financial risk, right? We can look at the potential risks down here. One that Andrew just named is, will the team have enough will the team have the right skills to complete the work, right? That's a risk. And mitigation strategy. James will support as needed, right? And I said the thing about helping when asked, because I know that if I just jumped in and really tried to lead the project, then you all don't have the chance to kind of step up and make it what it would be, right? And I want to maximize the space for you to make all of the decisions you feel comfortable making, because that's the governance at the heart of this project in the first place. But of course, we also want to get it done. So I'll be there to help make sure it gets done. When we think about risk, the other perspective here is this an appropriate amount of funding to risk given this and other risks we might name? And personally, right, current market values of ADA, I can think about 24,000 ADA, or I can think of approximately 8,000 US dollars. To me, that's a substantial amount of money, but it's also it's not such a high amount of funding that risking it feels irresponsible. But how do other people feel? Is this a safe risk, given that we're building a team here, and we don't know for certain if it'll be able to complete the work? How does it feel to spend 24,000 ADA on giving it a try? And you can answer that
I
question.
think it sounds,
Sorry.
I think it sounds good, but maybe there should be some additional ADA for consulting. If the maintainers don't have a clue what to do, then they can consult someone and pay them some ADA.
Nice. Would you put yourself forward as an available consultant?
Sure.
To keep you on call for that, for example, Adrian, what would be a reasonable amount of funds to add to the budget?
I guess that depends on the problem they are facing.
If we set aside an additional 4K ADA, and if we need it during the project, it's available. And if we overrun that budget, then we could bring a proposal back to the team to keep going. How would that sound?
Yeah, I guess for ADA, 4K would be enough to tackle some consulting.
Would anybody else want to be available as a technical consultant on that?
Mix will be awesome for the job, for the position.
Thank you, but I wonder the availability time. Like,
Hmm.
is it
I
restricted
know.
whenever we are available?
Yeah,
I do agree.
I think that's a good way to look at it, right? Mix, can I put your name and just say if available?
Sure, absolutely. I will be trying to available, but I wonder we can't decide on the hours at least, some kind of hours.
All right. And right, this is not an exhaustive list. If anybody else wants to be available as a technical consultant, if we have approval to move forward, that's something that we will bring to the team. And that's an example of something we could check in on during the open spaces time. Harsha, we've been keeping you waiting. What do you think?
I was just curious if we can involve the current cohort of students in the proposal, and I don't mean financially, but for the maintainers to just get feedback from students so that they can work on the issues.
Let's make that should be a evaluation criteria, right? Is that okay if I add it here? From current PPBL students about the state of the course. And by writing it here, these are the things that the rest of you will use to hold the team working on this proposal accountable. Okay. And right, if we report back to you a month or two after starting the work and you see that some of these things are not happening, that raises attention and it gives us something to improve upon in this space. Are there other evaluation criteria that people would want to see? I'm looking at the chat, Caesar. I agree, man. I'm excited. I think if we're successful, the model that we're building here is going to be reapplied. And I can guarantee that because if it's successful for Plutus PBL, we can apply the same model to Aiken PBL. So even if nobody else picks it up, at least it'll be useful to us. But I have a feeling that it'll be useful beyond this space, right? We all have the experiences we have in both open source communities and in Web3 communities. And we're all well aware of whether you want to talk about the tragedy of the commons or just in general, right? Shared maintenance of public resources. If we can prove a good model here, this is something I think that the Catalyst community or the Intersect community might be able to use as well.
Yeah, just real quick, I remember asking in the Discord channel if how our organization's expected to update their code every time there's a hard fork. I mean, knowing that it's going to happen less frequently, but there's a chance of it still happening. later down the line. I think this would be a good incentive for everyone, right? To like have that code up to date and make sure things don't fall. I don't know.
100%. Right? It's updating code after a hard fork, but it's also some of the most impactful design patterns still haven't been discovered or invented yet, right? And as we continue pushing the limits of what can be built on Cardano, as different libraries keep rolling out, we need to have a way to update the course to tell people about those things, right? So this will be ongoing work. Even if after we finish this round of revision, it's probably only a few months before another round is due. Mix, what do you think?
Regards to evaluation criteria, I think maybe we should add versioning so that people can keep up, or they know when things were updated and they can actually manage, like if they are stuck or if they want to follow a version for any reason, they can just know that this is the version I prefer. And the second thing is maybe communication. Like we tell people all about the things we are going to do. These are going to happen, the updates, feedback, survey. Also,
How's that
should we
sound?
have a roadmap, James?
That's a good question. The first milestone here is, where is it? Is just to identify the current issues in the course. I don't want to overdo it with reporting commitments, right? I think it might be sufficient just to have a Git issue list that shows everything that needs to be done. And if anybody wanted to take that issue list and organize it into a roadmap sometime later, that would be fine. But it's tempting to overpromise the amount of reporting. And I don't want to build too much bureaucracy before we start. Caesar, what do you think?
No, actually, I think you answered my question. The comment that you were just answering was involving communication. That was for how would we communicate? Because that's the question I had. Would it be like through Discord, or it looks like you were saying to have it as some sort of issue tracker? Or would that communication happen on GitHub as a way to communicate to everyone?
So I think let's throw that into the details right now. So communication channels. There's going to be one, the PPBL maintainers channel on Discord. But yeah, I do think that we want to track individual tasks somewhere, right? So let's just say task issue tracking. And the two tools that would be our options would be GitHub issues or Notion. And we don't have to decide which one. Ultimately, we might use a little bit of both, but when the team comes together, we would decide about what to use. Are there other communication channels that would be helpful? Actually, you know what? Let's put it this way. If helpful for tracking individual tasks, especially, for example, updates to course example repos, right? There's no better way to make updates to the PPBL transactions examples repo than just to put issues right there. right? So that's just a helpful tool. But then Notion, at minimum, the documenter, that's me in this example, will post updates in Notion for Gimbalabs community. That's the minimum. There's other things we could use Notion for, but I can 100% commit to that. Mix, what do you think?
Kinda is unrelated, but I wonder, are we abandoning GitLab entirely? And if that's the case, we are going to open organizational account in GitHub under Gimbalabs, putting everything there. And are we going to pay the organization in order to add contributor, organizer, maintainer, all sorts of stuff?
Yeah. There's some scope to that question that we're not going to cover right now, but the short answer is yes, for public purposes, GitLab is no longer what we use. We're moving over to GitHub. All of the Plutus PBL repos are on the Gimbalabs GitHub already. We're not currently paying anything for a Gimbalabs organization, but that's a proposal that could be written anytime if there's a good reason. But yeah, for now, you can go to github.com/Gimbalabs. You can see all of the public repos, and it's fine for what it needs to be so far. There's still some private Gimbalabs GitLab repos, but that's really for just work that we've been doing for a long time. And really, Mix, you and Adrian are running that stuff at this point as needed. If we ever do need to use GitLab for an official purpose, let me know.
Sure. But I wonder, should we migrate those private to GitHub to be, again, private or public even? Like one day we should kind of do the, house cleanup of GitLab.
Yeah, only if it's useful. Yeah,
Okay.
if there's a reason to do it, then do it. But I don't think we have to create work if we don't have a reason to.
In regards to the communication, I'm proposing to have a channel in Gimbalabs to use to kind of integrate GitHub to that channel. So if there is a push, change, issue, whatever, it would be published in the Gimbalabs so people can notify, like just automatically using webhook,
That's a good idea. Yeah, we have that set up in other places. This might be a good chance just to roll that in. It's not solely related to this proposal, but it is relevant to this proposal. So I think that can be a fine thing. And let's say we will. I'll make that a part of delivery on this, and I'll take care of that. We'll add a GitHub updates channel to Gimbalabs Discord. Perfect. Colin, what do you think?
Hey, I was wondering if you could throw a link to the Discord in chat.
Oh, yeah.
The one on.
There you go. All right, so you know what? There is not a driver for this proposal. So here's a good chance just for us to go through the idea of a driver. Driver. Do we show this? I thought, you know what? I have this over in the Andamio Notion. Let me go there for just a second. Just to show you guys what a driver is, in case you're unfamiliar with it, this is what a driver statement is. What's the current situation? What's the effect of the situation on the organization? What's the need and what will be the impact of attending to that need? it's possible to, in 4 sentences or less, just cover this very quickly. So let's just follow this template to make sure this proposal has a driver. So the first question, remember, oh, where is it? Is what is the current situation? Plutus PBL 2024 has been a work in progress since we started publishing it in March 2024. Now, following the first Chang hard fork, the course is out of date. That's the current situation, right? What's the effect? Because the course is out of date, it prevents students from accurately learning about Cardano development. There's just examples that don't work. For example, I'm not going to use the word examples twice. There are examples in the course that just don't work anymore. Okay, that's not great. So what do we need to do? We need to update the course so that all examples are relevant and will work for students, and so that all lessons are up to date. And then the impact part is kind of that fuzzy but awesome big picture, right? What's the impact? Well, of course, it's that the course will be up to date. But looking beyond that, right, if we can build a shared model for how we maintain the course, we'll be able to use the model throughout Gimbalabs governance and maybe beyond. This is not a perfect driver statement. I'm thinking on the spot, and maybe there's some things you'd want to change right here, but that's the basic idea. The goal is not to have to think too hard. And I hope you can see that the exercise of trying to answer these questions can be clarifying. So let me read this back. Does this sound okay? Pluto's PBL has been a work in progress since we started publishing it in March. Now, following the first Chang hard fork, the course is out of date. Because the course is out of date, it prevents students from accurately learning about Cardano development. There are examples in the course. There are examples in the course that just don't work anymore. We need to update the course so that all examples are relevant and will work for students, and so that all lessons are up to date. If we can build a shared model for how we maintain the course, we'll be able to use that model throughout Gimbalabs governance and maybe beyond. And there's things I could change, but is there anything urgent that you'd want to change right here or clarify? All right, let's run with that for now. All right, so at this point, everything is basically fleshed out here. Maybe we could have more risks if people want to add here, and we have 4 of 5 maintainers have volunteered and are ready to get started. So we need to find one more, but that's pretty good. And in terms of review and adaptation plan, the GPBL maintainers will report on progress no later than let's look at like the last Thursday that we might meet in December. I'm assuming that we're going to take the last week of the year off. So let's say that no later than December 19th. At open spaces. Right. Now I'm willing to put forth that this proposal is ready for consent. Let me share it with everybody once again. I'm going to share with you a link that you can look at directly in Notion if you have access. That's the first one. Or if you don't have Notion access, you can still view this page with read-only access on the second link. So let's take this to consent. Does anybody have any objections to this proposal moving forward as written? This is the sound of governance. Any concerns that might not block the proposal, but that you're still just wondering about?
Yes, it would be the same topic as before with the 4K ADA for resolving issues. So I think maybe it's not the best idea to have an additional budget for this, for that. Maybe it should be part of the maintainer payment so that the maintainers get the ADA if they can resolve everything themselves. So the idea would be that there is less incentive to spend the 4K ADA.
Yeah. And this is an interesting one. I'm eager to experiment on this because what in a perfect world, right? Everybody who's in the maintainer cohort would be able to trust, okay, I have 4,000 ADA coming my way, and working together, I want to get this job done. But in reality, we recognize that maybe some people would be resolving more issues than others. And if that happens, how do we account for that? Right? But I think that's an example of something that we could try to come up with a perfect system before starting the work, or we can try the work and see how it goes and have better answers to those questions in the future. So I'm leaning towards the second option, but are there rails that will be worth putting in place before moving forward?
Yeah, that I'm also for the second option. It was just a concern that does not look to accept the proposal. But maybe it's something we should keep in mind.
Yeah, I agree. In Gimbalabs and on the Andamio team, we use the word emergence all the time. And there's a book that I recommend. If you've never read it, it's called Emergent Strategy. It was published a few years ago. I can find a link to it. Emergent Strategy. And that's really what we're talking about here, right? Ultimately, years from now, we might have a well-established playbook for how maintainers keep a course up to date. But we don't have that playbook yet. We're going to let it emerge by trying the first project and then refining our way of doing things by doing things. Mix, what do you think?
I wonder, can we use the governance contract, the governance system for getting the vote that which maintainer did the good job to get paid, which maintainer didn't, something like that. Or no, putting this on some sort of governance, not really a good idea.
Yes, sir. Okay. So that's the rest of the Catalyst proposal,
Yeah.
right? And so hopefully the entire Catalyst proposal gets funded and we can move into those phases, no questions asked, right?
Okay.
But if the Catalyst proposal is not funded, then in January, we can talk about whether we have some other source of funding for doing that governance work that we're talking about right here.
Okay. Great.
Yeah, that's
And
so exciting.
is
That's
there
why we
any?
really need this proposal to pass
Yeah, indeed.
because this is just step one, updating the course. Of course, we want to do it, but why are we doing it? Because it's an entry point to a bigger governance conversation.
And I guess I missed this detail. For how long this maintainer needs to be the maintainer? Like 1 year, 6 months? Is there any date for them?
Great. It's to do the necessary round of updates for right now. Okay, the maintainers are not promising to make updates for PPBL 2025 and 2026 and all of that. All they are responsible for is taking the current course and making sure that it's 100% correct for the current state of Cardano. And yeah, so now we're up to, if the budget for keeping Plutus PBL up to date is approximately 10,000 USD per year. And remember, that budget is going to people, right? It's always amazing. This is just like a personal thing, right? It's always amazing to me when we talk about people being expensive, right? But like, it's people who get stuff done. And in my opinion, spending approximately 10,000 USD per year for people to engage in governing this commons resource that has value beyond us, but also does have value, directly. I think that's a worthwhile investment, and I would like to find a way to make sure that that can be sustained for the long term, right? Do we have a claim? Like if the Intersect budget or the general Cardano budget has whatever annual amount of ADA it has, will we be able in future years to make a claim on that treasury to say, hey, we need this much to make sure that our education materials are up to date? If we are successful, the answer to that question will be an easy yes from a critical mass of the Cardano community. All right. Well, a couple of concerns. Everybody here, I don't know how new you might be to the consent process, but this is how it goes. We build a proposal, we talk through it, we edit it together, but it sounds like there's no further objections. Is it okay if I move this one to in progress because it's been approved? Last chance for objections. All right. That's really exciting. Thanks, everybody. So I'm going to move this to in progress. Yep, slam the emoji. I can't find him right now, but yeah, you get the idea. I'm going to go back to the projects page where, of course, now we can see this proposal is in progress. It has a budget of 28,000 ADA. Wonderful. One funding source is the Fund 13 proposal that we're waiting on, but we have these funds coming in from either sustain and maintain or just the Gimbal pool rewards that are already in the treasury. So that feels good to be able to say that this does have a current source to fund it. And I haven't looked at the current number. Harsha, how much ADA did you send last week? I haven't even looked at that yet.
I think around 20K.
Okay, awesome. So over here, Gimbalabs prototype, there it is. Let me just change what I'm sharing real quick. We've got 71,000 ADA in the treasury right now with another approximately 20,000. So we're at a little more than 90,000 ADA. A bunch of that has been allocated, as you can see in Notion, but it's still not all of it, right? So most of this has already been spent, but there's still a little bit left for the most recent lessons, which spaces and playground. A little bit of this has been spent, but we got to go through that. And that's something we can look at together this time next week. But even if we added these total amounts up, 45, right? This is still less than 60K ADA. So as you can see, there's still a bunch of ADA left to be allocated to different projects like these ones or like others that are still in the proposal phase. So let's work together to allocate those funds to meaningful work. I'm really excited to start going on the maintenance of the course. And there's already a channel and a team for that. We are looking for one more person to jump into that work. So if you're interested being part of this inaugural cohort of maintainers, let me know in Discord. Just ask a question in there. And just on a kind of nice historical note, this is exactly how Plutus PBL started in late 2021. We had 5 people get together and just start building examples. Adrian was part of that initial crew. That's how we built up a relationship. And now, along with Mix and Nelson, we are co-founders of a new organization. And we trusted each other enough to start that organization because of the experience we already had working on those early iterations of Plutus PBL. So based on history, I have similar hopes for what the maintainers cohort will be. This is a first try at something that is going to endure, and we're going to have a chance to keep refining it over time. So congrats, everybody, and thanks for getting that one approved. All right. Well, I know that a bunch of us have to jump to another meeting in a few minutes. Steve, Sebastian, and I, and some other folks, maybe we're going to go meet with the open source office at Intersect, in part to share with them the work we've already been doing in spaces like this, and hopefully to be successful in making sure that this kind of work is sustained. So hopefully good news to come over the next few weeks. We're going to go take care of that. For today, there's still some proposals to get through, but we're going to pick up next week, same time, same place, with the other proposals that need consent and refinement. So thanks, everybody, for spending time together today. If you're watching this as a YouTube video, we meet 14:30 at UTC every Thursday. Details are at gimbalabs.com/calendar. Thanks, y'all. See you soon.
All right, bye everyone.
Bye.
Cheers.
Thanks.